Good morning. Good morning. It is Wednesday, which means it's one of my favorite days of the week, which is Wellness Wednesday. And also the day that my activewear boutique brings out new items every week. So Wednesday is legit one of my favorite days of the week. And not because it's hump day, which is what a lot of people go with. So welcome to Wellness Wednesday. If you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana. I am a grad student studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I am an activewear fanatic, a jazzerciser, line dancer, runner. Definitely believe that an active lifestyle is a very important component of wellness. And I've spent most of my life battling with anxiety and depression. It's something that I believe you never really get over, but are in recovery from, similar to drug addiction, alcoholism, anything like that. And so it's important to stay vigilant. And one of the ways that we can do that is by sharing information with each other. I have found that sharing my story and what works for me helps others, and vice versa. I love learning from you. When you comment and ask questions and interact, message me afterwards. Those are my favorite parts of Wellness Wednesday, because then I get to learn new information from you and expand on my information beyond the time that I'm normally on here. So with that said, I encourage you to drop a comment if you see this, ask a question, let me know you're here. Facebook doesn't always show me all of the things. Sometimes I see eyeballs, sometimes I don't see anything. Sometimes I see face bubbles. So if you're here, let me know you're here. And if I don't acknowledge your comment or question, then it's just because Facebook didn't show it to me. And I will get back to it when I'm done, I promise. Good morning, Miss Carla. Good to see you. So far today, I see the things. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed last week's video lessons from my residency, which was my first opportunity to practice hands-on counseling skills with fellow students. This week, the topic that's on my heart is manifestation. And I know that that can be a little bit iffy for some of us. I've talked about it more and more. And with each day that I make time to try to mindfully practice it, and I'm still very, very new at this, I embrace it more and more. And I'm going to explain that in just a little bit. And there may be some of you that are like, Donna, you said you believe in God. What's about all this manifestation stuff? I'm going to explain that in just a minute. Good morning, Miss Stacy. So I hope you enjoy this. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask, comment, shoot me a message. And before I get started, let me just say that this is episode 97, which means in 3 more episodes, we're going to be on episode 100, which just blows my mind. So if you have ideas for, good morning, Captain Charlie. If you have ideas for topics to cover on my 100th episode, please shoot me a message, drop a comment, whatever. But remember that, I try to stay away from politics and negativity. And if you didn't see last week's video on the lessons from residency that can work for everyone, let me know. I'll probably go ahead and drop the link in the comments when I'm done so that you can check that out too. Okay, so what is manifestation? Is it just a bunch of woo-woo, or is it the real deal? Let's find out. Let's work on, I know, Carla, 100 episodes. Isn't that crazy? We're just like spitting distance away. All right, so is it woo-woo or is it the real deal? I want to tell you a little bit of a story about how I got here as a believer, because when I was growing up, basically what I was taught was things of a supernatural sense don't align with a faith in God, which is ironic because most people view belief in God and God himself as a supernatural being. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. And I want to be careful because I want to be clear that whether you believe in God or not, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your religion is, you can keep listening because this is not what that's about. So how I got here as a believer is that I had a difficult time. I had a mentor that started talking about putting things out into the universe and manifesting. And I had a couple other mentors that did the same. I have a few. I'm very fortunate. And I was really struggling to reconcile the two concepts. So the one that I was closest to, I asked the question one day, you believe in God. How do you reconcile all this talk about the universe and manifestation with that belief? Because I'm really struggling with it. And their answer to me was a question. And that question was, do you believe that God created the universe? And I said, well, yes, I do. And as I answered the question, the light bulb went on and I realized where they were going with this statement, which was that if I believe that God created the universe, then it should be okay for me to put stuff out in the universe, right? Because that means I'm putting it out to God. So that's kind of how I started to get where I am now in terms of manifestation. This can align with almost any belief that you have. And I'm certainly not here to push religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs on anyone. But whether you're talking about karma, do no harm, any of those things, putting things out in the universe or putting things out to your creator, whatever you deem that to be, it has some legitimacy to it. So for me, the other thing that came up much later on, because these kind of things are always a very slow process for me. I have to weigh it and I have to filter it and I have to overthink it and I have to do all those things. And then I have to, eventually what ends up happening is I make decisions based on my personal feelings and my personal experiences and how my body and my heart and my mind reacts to information and filters it. So, and I think that's essentially what we all do. It just depends. All of us pay attention to those things on varied levels. So, fast forward a few years, about a year ago, another mentor of mine, turned to believing in God and, made a statement, shared a verse that I've heard before, that I've read before, which was Mark 11:24, which said, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. And once again, heard it before, read it before, light bulb went on and I went, oh my gosh, that's essentially manifestation. That's essentially putting out in the universe, this is what's going to happen and it happening. But it's not quite that simple. Sounds like a magic pill, right? It's not that simple. So that is how I got here as a believer. Now, the concept of manifestation is widespread in a lot of different beliefs, faiths, religions, spiritual practices, whatever. So let me give you some different examples of what that can look like. We've talked about the red car concept. What is the red car concept? If I were to see you today and I ask you how many red cars you saw on the way to meet me or on the way to work or whatever, you might not be able to tell me because you weren't looking for red cars, right? But on your way home now, red cars are on your brain. You are going to notice every red car on the road. And that's because that is now what your brain is filtering as important, because that's what's on your radar. And I've mentioned this before in terms of what you look for is what you will get. And it took me a very long time to learn that. When I was younger and I was feeling trapped in my life, I never, ever, ever believed what I read and what I was told, that I was responsible for 99% of what happened to me. And why was that? It was because I was convinced that I was not in control of any facet of my life or my being, and that I was cursed, that I was unlucky, and that no matter what happened, even if something good happened, the other shoe would drop at any minute. So guess what I was focusing on? So, yet another mentor talked about the ladder exercise, and I did this for a few days, at their recommendation. And it was every day before you go to bed or when you get up in the morning, think about a ladder, visualize the ladder, what it looks like, what a ladder does, all the things about a ladder, and to let them know how many days it was before we actually saw a ladder. So I did that. And within a few days, there was a ladder. My boyfriend was using a ladder outside. Coincidence? Possibly. Depends on how you look at it. The other side of that coincidence coin is that would I have noticed the ladder once it made its appearance if I hadn't been doing this exercise with my mentor? What I'm trying to say is, it's possible that he could have taken that ladder out, done what he needed to do with it, put it away, and it would have never been on my radar. I might not have never noticed if I was not focused on this ladder exercise. Same idea as the red car. So kind of file that in the back of your head for a minute, because I'm going to circle back around to that. So how do these connect? For my science nerds, how our brains work is something called the reticular activating system. Yeah, that's a whole nother Wellness Wednesday where we could dig into that and still not begin to touch it. But as I said before, what it basically means is our brains filter things based on what we deem important. So what we're focused, so that lends scientific credence to what I have said before, which is what we focus on is what we're gonna get. And I saw that. It is hard to explain because there's so many examples. But I actually saw that process evolve in my life as I started to spend time with more positive people and started to look for gratitude and silver linings. I've talked about all this before, but you see how it lines up for the concept that we know as manifestation. Now, some people think that manifestation is, I'm going to think about it and it's going to appear. Again, not that simple. Hello, Miss Tara. Not that simple at all. So, how do these all connect? If you aren't looking for opportunity, blessings, etc., you will not see them. Even if they're right in front of you, smacking you on the nose. It's that simple. And I didn't believe that, but I do now because I've personally experienced it as my mindset changed. There's a great quote by I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, Roald Dahl. He was a well-known children's author. I kept this up so I could tell you. He has been called one of the greatest storytellers for children of the 20th century. And the quote from him is, those who don't believe in magic will never find it. And I have personally experienced that, absolutely believe it to be true. Once I changed my mindset and started focusing on more positive things and not giving those negative things as much credence, which I'll go into a little bit more in a minute, I began to find more opportunity and more magic. So like I said, as you can see, this does not have necessarily to do with faith, and it's not specific to your beliefs, which is why I said I explained how I got here as a believer, but this can apply to anyone. So let's move on. So his quote basically reinforces the manifestation process, because your brain works to confirm, if you believe in specific outcomes, your brain works and operates to confirm those outcomes and those beliefs by making signs that pop up and opportunities that pop up more salient to you. You're more likely to notice them because you're looking for that specific thing. Hence what you focus on is what you will get. If you are looking for negative, if you are looking for signs and reasons why your life is crap and why nothing good ever happens to you, what are you going to find? But if you're looking for reasons why life is good and you have a lot to be grateful for and you have opportunity, then those are more likely going to be. It doesn't mean the other stuff isn't happening. It just means your focus is different. It doesn't mean any of the things that were happening are no longer happening. It means your focus is different. It's a mindset thing. So again, this reinforces the manifestation process, making the desired outcome more likely. We are more likely to notice signs. We are more likely, Tara, I'm so glad to see this resonates with you. We are more likely to notice signs. We are more likely to notice opportunities. And therefore, because of our focus, more likely to take action accordingly, according to those signs and opportunities. So there's a heavy duty role, obviously, with visualization when it comes to manifestation. So what is that? Well, it's the practice of creating a mental image of a desired income. So how I got started on this was, as I started, and I've talked about meditation before, once I started meditating and I started learning about putting things out into the universe, and about asking in prayer and believing as I pray that I've already received it, and these things started to actually tie together for me, I started practicing a little bit of visualization. Well, with meditation, a lot of times relaxation anxiety techniques include meditation and they include visualization. And for me, a lot of times those things are interchangeable, because if you're sitting and you're breathing and you're relaxing and you're focusing on a visual, whether it's a happy place, whether it's a goal you want to achieve, whatever, you're essentially whether it's a Bible verse, no matter what your beliefs are, whatever you're focusing on during that visualization, you're essentially meditating on it. That's, to me, there's not much different there. But again, my opinion. So, visualization is creating a mental image of the desired income. So if you're creating that mental image of your desired did I say income? Outcome, then you are focusing on that. And therefore, again, you're visualizing it. You're more likely to see opportunities, signs, and things that take you in that direction. All right. So for me, this visualization often looks like running a little faster, having a more successful run, feeling more coordinated in jazzercise, visualizing me if I have to have a speaking engagement, speaking and being successful and being relaxed. And the key behind visualization is, how does it feel? How does it look? How do you feel? What do you see? What do you hear when you're doing this? Because the more real it is in your head, the more likely you are to focus on that goal and move toward it. So Michael Jordan. All right, so that's me, and I've visualized many things, but I'm still working on a very small scale here. I'm oftentimes visualizing just getting through the day with gratitude and peace. Good morning, Miss Melissa. That's often what I'm working on, or visualizing getting through this video with all the information and the allotted amount of time, and not, things like that. I'm still working pretty small here. Now, the mentor I mentioned that recently turned to God and shared that prayer verse from the Bible described a time they were taking He was taking ballroom dancing classes. I line dance, not him. Ballroom dancing classes with his wife. And he was very frustrated because he could tell by the way people reacted to him, interacted with him. He really pretty much felt like he sucked. That's what he kept telling himself too. That's the story he kept telling himself. One step at a time. Yes, Miss Carla. This kind of thing is a very slow process. Takes lots of practice. So when he was meditating, started to visualize himself nailing the dances, getting the steps right, getting better. And at one point in his visualization, he visualized the instructor saying, "Wow, you've really improved. You're doing fabulous," or something. I'm paraphrasing. Obviously, I don't remember the exact verbiage. And it's not really my story to tell. So, and then not too long after that actually happened. He nailed the dance. He got that positive comment almost verbatim from his instructor. Now, did he make that happen just by visualizing it? That you have to decide. Because according to my research and what I have come to believe, this visualization helped him to do better. He probably practiced a little harder. He probably paid a little more attention. And so, yes, by visualizing and manifesting, he did make it happen, but through his own activity and work and focus. Do you see where I'm going with this? So now let's talk about Michael Jordan real quickly. Michael Jordan, if you don't know, and a lot of people do know because this is often used in motivational speeches. Michael Jordan, the basketball player, the really tall guy that's really good, credits much of his success to the power of visualization and imagining himself making the shot, winning the game, and seeing his name on the trophy. If there is a new skill he was working toward, he would visualize it and practice it. And he credits his success with that. Okay, so it's because when we visualize something, it's powerful enough to begin the process of creating a neural pathway in the brain. I've talked about this before too. Our brains are uniquely plastic. And there is evidence that Our brains react to like take a scary situation. Let's flip it back to the negative for a minute. Do a little reverse. If you have had a bad experience and you have a flashback from that experience, or you visualize that experience, or you visualize like the most fearful experience you could ever encounter, you're going to find, and I'm sure you've done this if you think about it. Tell me, have you experienced where your body has a physical reaction to that visualization, to that flashback, whatever, even if it's not actually happening right now? This is the same idea. Our bodies, our brains respond to visualization almost as if it's actually happening. So what that means is we can light up certain parts of our brain. We can create new neural pathways based on how we're thinking and what we're visualizing. If you imagine and experience a threat, certain parts of your prefrontal cortex, I know, science, I'm just trying to point out to you that there's more to this than just faith and belief, but that belief is a huge component. So according to Neurovine, researchers suggest an effective way to cope with a threat, and this is commonly used in cognitive behavioral therapy, is to imagine it, but without negative consequences. This is one of the main principles used in CBT, and most notably for eliminating phobias. The same principle can be used for success. Visualizing the scenario of succeeding in a difficult situation or achieving your goals can activate the same areas of your brain as the ones that would actually be physically activated when you experience that. It promotes neuroplasticity, and it forms and strengthens pathways in your brain that are related to your success. Could I tell you this without reading my notes? Yes, but it would probably sound like blah, blah, because I would be stumbling over my words, and I want to make sure I get the words right. So, visualizing success reduces your stress, which means you're going to have a surge of motivation and you are more likely to succeed. And that's the bottom line. So again, there's plenty of studies out there that show that visualization activates the same regions of the brain as if you were actually performing and being successful in the activity in question. So how do we balance belief with action? Let's talk about that. So there's another Bible verse, if you are a believer, that says faith without works is dead. And there's all kinds of interpretations on that. We're not going to get into that. But that first verse I shared with you, Mark 11:24, praying as if you've already received it, has to be coupled with belief. It emphasizes belief, but it has to be coupled with action in order for there to achieve results. I know a lot of people that really, really love the Bible verse, including me, be still and wait. I don't believe for a second that my God or your creator or your universe or whoever you believe in expected us to just sit there and wait for things to happen. We were designed, we are unique individuals with tools and knowledge and wisdom that we were given so that we can do a certain amount of the work ourselves. So when you're visualizing something, you can't just sit and wait for it to happen. It's not that simple. If you have tools, if you have processes that you can do to get you a step closer, then that's what you need to be doing. And the more you visualize making those things happen, the more likely you are. Now, there's all kinds of information about the universe and vibration, and I haven't begun to dug into all of that, because here's what I know. I know that sitting down and writing affirmations, and I've talked about affirmations before, writing affirmations out every day, and writing things out phrasing it in a way where it's already happened. I am so happy and grateful for. I am so, that I have achieved this, that I have been blessed with this, whatever. The simple act of doing that every single day has changed the way my day looks. It changes the course of my day. Now, why is that? Well, it's probably mental. I'm not going to lie. It probably puts me on a level of looking for things and working harder and being more grateful, which means I'm making more things happen. So, belief, first of all, belief that you are worthy. has to be coupled with action to make this work. If you are Michael Jordan and you're visualizing your name on the trophy, but you don't actually believe that can happen for you, it's not going to happen. If you don't actually believe that it's possible, then you're not going to take the steps and the actions toward it. Or you may take the steps, but you may be perceiving things and doing things with the slant that, well, I'm going to try this, but it's not going to work. So I'm going to give you a little teeny tiny example of, this is kind of funny and it's anecdotal. One of the things that, I stopped doing when I started learning to manifest and started learning to be a little more careful about what I speak into life is I used to say, and I used to basically broadcast that I never win anything. Never win anything. And I used to say that about everything. I would occasionally buy a lotto ticket. I would occasionally buy a raffle ticket somewhere. But my attitude was I never win anything. And that's pretty much all that ever came out of my mouth. So guess what? I rarely ever won anything. Raffles, anything like that I bought into, I rarely ever won them. So one of the first things that I learned was to stop putting negativity out there. And there was a lot of negativity that I stopped putting out there. But this is the simplest example I can give you that has worked. I mean, it has essentially worked. Now, I have stopped saying that. I now say I am a winner. I now say I am successful at all that I endeavor. I now say I receive abundantly and therefore I give abundantly and more. But guess what started happening? Have I hit the lotto? No. I have, however, had more winning tickets since I started doing this than I've ever had in my entire life. And I don't play every week. Sometimes I buy like one ticket a week. Sometimes I don't even make it to the store to buy one. So it's not like I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in the lotto. But I have more winning tickets than I do not, even if they're just free tickets, which is amazing to me. And I get excited about a free ticket because for so long I didn't believe that I was a lucky person. So when it really, I don't think it had anything to do with luck. Not too long ago, my boyfriend and I were at a local mixer and there were prizes on the table. And when one of the prizes came up, I'm like, that's the prize we need to win because, and I made the statement of why we needed to win it. And it wasn't my card that got pulled, but it was his card that got pulled. And he just kind of turned around and looked at me and, and we joked that I manifested that. Well, that probably had more to do with my mindset that it was possible than it had to do with anything else. And that's what I'm trying to portray to you. So you have to believe that you are capable, worthy, etc., that it's possible. That's the first step. That's really the first step. Because if you don't believe it, then you can't visualize how it feels, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like when you're achieving that goal, whatever it is. Okay? You have to couple it with action. You can't just sit around and wait for it to happen and wish for it. That's not what this is about. But when you have the right mentality and the right attitude and your focus is on the right things, you are going to find it easier to complete the tasks that are going to get you there. And you're likely to find more opportunities that, again, were probably there all along. You just didn't see them because you had your I suck blinders on, right? And then, like I said, it's about personal responsibility. You have to act and you have to stay persistent towards your goal. And if you believe that it can happen and you're working toward it, it is that much more likely to come to fruition. So is it just woo-woo? Only you can decide. And the best way, in my opinion, is to give it a try. It doesn't have to be fancy. And it is okay if you believe in God and you want to pray for something as if you've already received it. Or focus on the gratitude side, like, thank you so much, Lord, for this solution that you provided, even if you don't know what the solution is yet. If you're not a believer in God, then when you're meditating, when you're talking to Buddha or the universe or whatever, same idea. Show gratitude for it as if it's already occurred. That's really the key here. And one of the things that might be the tipping point for you is there is true power in the placebo effect. The power of placebo is that it activates the body's natural mechanisms to help people feel better. So if I give you if you think you have something and I give you a pill and I tell you that pill's going to fix it, a lot of people are going to start taking it and they're going to start feeling better. That's that placebo effect. I had a family member years ago, God rest their soul, that had a rack of pills on the back of their door. They were a clinical hypochondriac. There's no T in there. And at the time, that was back in the day when doctors were like, okay, they think they have this thing. They don't have it. We've run all the tests. We can't convince them. And they would give a sugar pill and tell the patient that the sugar pill would take care of the problem. And then it would be on to the next thing. So there is real stuff in the placebo effect. There's studies that show it every day. One of the reasons why there's so much confusion around a lot of supplements, and the studies pertaining to those supplements, most of those studies will mention in some form or fashion the placebo effect. Because if you believe that it will work, there's that much more of a likelihood that it will. So there it is again. The placebo effect, the manifestation, the visualization, the praying as if you've already received. Don't they all sound the same? Do you see where this concept is laced into every facet of our world, regardless of what our beliefs are, regardless of whether we're hardcore science fact, whether we believe in supernatural stuff, karma, the universe, God, doesn't matter what it is. The concept, the underlying concept of the placebo effect is there, of the manifestation, the visualization. And there's many, many, many very successful people that will tell you over and over and over again that visualization, that manifestation is what got them where they are. That belief that they were going to do it, that they could do it, that they were capable, and visualizing themselves doing it. So, yes, there's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of different facets of this and manifestation, which, like I said, to me, visualization is a core component of that, can absolutely, apply regardless of your spiritual, physical, scientific beliefs. There's legitimacy in this concept no matter what angle you approach it from. But it's a tool. It's a mindset tool, and it's a goal-setting tool. And it's a taking action tool. It is not a magic formula. There's still other steps you have to take to make it happen. So I encourage you to explore it for yourselves. Start with something small. Decide for you. Don't go just on my word alone. My hope is that this will spark something to make you dig into it a little further. Maybe try it out a little bit. The most important thing here is, what is the core component behind visualization, behind manifestation? Again, the belief that it can happen, the mindset, the change in perception, and the change in mindset to focus on what's possible, what's good, what you have to be grateful for. These are all things I've talked about over and over and over again when it comes to affirmations, self-talk, all the things, all wrapped up again in another neat little bow. So that's one of the things I love about the wellness topic, is so much of this stuff actually overlaps over and over and over again. So if we can just take one little step in one direction, a lot of times we'll find that it bleeds over into everything. So decide for yourself, whether you are a believer, in God, karma, the universe, science, whatever the case. Put it into practice, decide for yourself. And remember that Henry Ford said, and here we go again, same concept. You can see how these all tie together. Whether you think we can or can't, we're right. It really boils down to how you're looking at it here. And changing your mindset, especially if you've always had a negative one, is no easy task. I can vouch for that. It took me until I was in my 40s before things started to click a little bit, and it still takes constant daily practice. Make no mistake, I routinely find myself slipping backwards, and I have to go, Donna, stop it. When I start feeling that negative loop start, and I have to stop, and I have to sometimes focus, sit down, write down my goals and affirmations again, maybe meditate a little, take a breath, and redirect my brain to something positive. Because it takes daily practice. You can't get better if you don't practice. So whether you think you can or can't, you're right, according to Henry Ford. So remember what we talked about. If you're a believer, we talked about Mark 11:24, praying as if you've already received. If you are not a believer in God, if you believe in the universe, karma, science, whatever, look into the red car concept. Think about what we talked about with the red car concept and visualization. And I promise you now that we talked about the red car like 5 times in the last half hour, that's all you're going to see today. That's all you're going to see today. I predict it. You're going to see red cars. You'll have to come back and let me know. But dig into that. And there's some science behind all of this. Dig into the neuroplasticity and the reticular activating system and how it works and how it lights up and filters things that we are putting focus and importance on. Belief, focus, action. Whatever it is, you have to believe it's possible, or the rest of it doesn't work. Because if you don't believe it's possible or you don't believe you're worthy, the rest of it doesn't work. So it starts with belief. And I absolutely invite you to share your experience. If you decide to experiment with this a little bit, share your experiences, share your thoughts. Remember, one time spending 3 minutes meditating is not going to do the job. You're going to have to start, just like I said, a little bit, maybe writing down your goals as if they've already happened every single day. Get you a notebook. I have a gratitude, goals, and affirmations log, and I do that every single day. And I wasn't doing it every single day, but I did start doing it every single day again on last Monday. And wow, what a difference. What a difference it's made in the way my days flesh out. And I'm not really doing anything different than what I was. I just added that meditation and writing down of my goals as if they've already happened and my gratitudes into my daily practice again. Because I fall off the bandwagon with this just like I do anything else. So do a little experimentation in whatever form or fashion works for you. Dig a little bit into it. Share your thoughts and experiences. Just even if you just pop in tomorrow and be like, listen, lady, I saw like 15 red cars today. Will you knock it off? But let me know and just try a little bit of visualization. And see if you think it's woo-woo or reality. And remember, just one time is probably not going to cut it. You're probably going to have to try it a few times to see some actual results. So if you found this helpful, please share. I hope you enjoyed this topic. There's so many possibilities there. But as with anything else we talk about, a lot of it begins with our mindset and what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about what's going on around us, and what we say when we look in the mirror to ourselves. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please share it. Please feel free to drop a comment, ask a question, shoot me a message, all of the things. And most importantly, for the next week, while I think about what next week's topic is going to be well. Have a fabulous Wednesday. Bye.